So the thing about these diversity and inclusion programs is that they were never meant to actually help minorities. They were meant to distract you from the reality of ever-increasing concentration of wealth in the United States and in most of the West. Because as property values have gone up, that really, goes back into this whole idea of property rights, which were denied on the basis of race to many groups over the past few centuries. And so as inflation has gone up, property values have gone up as well. And so certain groups have benefited far more from others. And the whole point of DEI, the reason it didn't work, is that the whole idea is now you've got a lot of rich people, especially people who are going to inherit some money, and we'll throw a little slice of this profit into this really meaningless program to distract you from the fact that we haven't really changed anything at all. And in fact, we still have massive inequality on the basis of race. We haven't, all of these programs, affirmative action, whatever we've done in the United States and in Europe, they just haven't worked. So we want to, in order to distract you, we want to sort of put let's say one African-American president, or that's at the highest levels, right, of DEI. You want to go ahead and put, an African-American woman, in there. And if she's part Indian, that's even better, right? You get to appeal to even more demographics. And yet, again, it was never designed to do anything other than give cover to the fact that there really hasn't been any sort of racial economic progress in the United States or in Europe because of these different programs and because of the fact that, most wealth is, unless it's, a windfall, it's really incremental, right? Somebody, gets rich, they pass down that wealth to other people, and, you build on that. It's essentially a form of incremental progress. And so that's why now this is really interesting. So the rise of the right wing isn't so much that, and the open xenophobia of the right wing isn't really so much based on the fact that they're poking holes in all these different diversity programs, starting from affirmative action all the way back then through DEI. It's that they don't understand history. And so that's why they're repeating the xenophobia of the past. And ultimately, it's the same thing over and over again because there are groups that just don't understand history. And whose fault is that? It's almost always the government's fault. And who runs the government? The majority, and not the minorities, and so on and so forth. So again, when you're trying to figure out what went wrong in the West never, ever, ever asked anybody to make any sort of major sacrifices. In some countries, it just took away the property of the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church, which owns a lot of property in the West, is really afraid of that happening again. It happened in so many places, right? In France, Mexico, they're really afraid that once you sort of figure out what their property values are really based on, immorality, right? Chattel slavery and so on and so forth, that incremental progress, excluding other people and so on. They're concerned, right, that once you figure that out, that their property could be taken away from them again. It's happened all the time in history. And, you go back to Europe, a lot of the wars were based on essentially the Protestants and the Catholics fighting each other over the corruption of the Catholic Church. So you've got suddenly Pope Francis, right, very liberal, very open, saying all the right things about Palestine and so on and so forth. But you have to remember, all that together, right, without any sort of economic backing is worthless. Because at the same time that the Pope was talking about Palestine, they got $1 billion, essentially from COVID payments. They were the only ones given a special exemption. So how much are they actually spending, right? They might spend money on a basketball program, right? We got 12 people maximum, right? So that's a form of a DEI program, by the way, right? You look at all these people, Kobe Bryant, Catholic school, LeBron James, Catholic school, the founder of Nike, Catholic. It's an ecosystem. And it's all designed to present an image to try to get you away from the reality of the past. That's what all these programs are really about. Affirmative action, DEI, is just the latest variation of that distraction mechanism that's designed to cover up, essentially, and distract you from the failure of the property owners in the West in terms of actually creating a higher quality of life for everyone involved. And that none of it works. So if you're a libertarian like myself, you believe in fairness, you know what these programs are all about. You're against them as well. You're not, rabidly against them, right? But you're against them. You want, a fair system for all people. But, what's happening now is that you end up with these really weird Venn diagrams because I understand why they exist, and I understand why they're corrupt, and I understand for whom they are designed to fail. Not the minorities. If it's the majority, it's the property owners that want to distract you from the ever-increasing concentration of wealth. And so I look at it from that viewpoint because I know who it's really for. But these conservatives, whether it's the Racial Reform Party, whether it's the MAGA movement in the United States, they understand just like I do that these programs don't work, but they don't understand why they're there in the first place. And so the number of people that are like, that come at it from my approach, a minority, quote unquote, quasi-conservative approach, very, very small. And that's a problem in the United States. You've got all these conservatives that realize something's wrong and are rebelling against the system, but it's based on a foundation of essentially a new form of xenophobia, and it happens over and over and over again. And I'm not in the United States anymore anyway. So yeah, good luck.